I play a lot of OpenTTD, and in my videos, I mostly am using slow trains. But why? Well, they're just easier to work with. Though fast trains are fast, their speed comes with the downside of requiring way more infrastructure. But what if I just ignored that, and picked the fastest train I could find? And I'm not talking about any puny maglev. Where we're going, we won't need rails. We'll need tubes, or more specifically, vacuum tubes. The Vac Trains mod hosts a slew of vacuum trains and is the train set I'll be using today. So let's find out what it takes to conquer the fastest train in OpenTTD. While I do that thing I always do at the start of every playthrough, I'll explain the initial challenge I'll be facing here. Vacuum trains are hilariously expensive. Immense power comes at an immense cost, so the money generator has to be a little more robust than usual. I'll have to double up on my usual passenger lines to make do. The trains aren't the only expensive component though. Let's price check this string of 15 vacuum tubes. That's over $1 million. Great. I'll have to triple up on my usual passenger lines to make do. After letting the game run for a few years, I've got 25 million in the bank, ready to throw into the vacuum. 25 million might seem like a lot, but I really have to be careful here. The path I take has to be direct, with little meandering, and there's no room for any mistakes because the refunds are basically zero. Well, that cost 20 million. That leaves us with just enough to buy the first vacuum train. This train set has a lot to choose from, but I'm going whole hog. The Silk Dragon is only the second fastest engine, but it's the fastest that can carry non-passenger cargo. And maybe that's a letdown, but I don't think that living beings should go anywhere near what I'm planning to build. It would be an understatement to call these trains fast. And even at these speeds, this small map really does not do these trains justice. For now. In my last video, I played a game using only trucks, whose slow speed allowed me to add many more vehicles than I normally would. These trains are having the exact opposite effect. It takes only 10 seconds for this train to complete a round trip. The first segment of rail has been laid, but the finances still can't support constant building. I should preface that this is really not the way to play with this train set. Vacuum trains are meant to be late-game content, only affordable with a large network supporting it. So let's just make some more money. That 25 million took around 10 years to save up. I'll expand enough to earn that same amount in just 1 year. Let's start by connecting a bunch of iron mines to a steel mill. Well, that's connected, but why stop here? Let's connect the steel mill to a factory. I'll make sure to transport it all the way across the map to maximize profit. It's quite a long route, but even this pales in comparison to the cost of vacuum tubes. Well, that's connected, but why stop here? Let's connect the factory to a city. I'll pick a location all the way across the map to once again maximize profit. I can reuse a lot of the previous route to get this running. All I have to build is a new station. Such are the bounties of a cargo chain. For how quick this went up, it's still satisfying to look at. Trains weaving through a junction is something I'll never get tired of watching. It's time to unveil the blueprints for the real network. And this won't be any regular network, but instead something far more sinister. Vacuum trains come with many strengths, but also many very evil weaknesses, the most grave of which being their extremely slow acceleration. Well, the acceleration is high, but it's slow in the metric of tile distance. Most vanilla trains can accelerate to their maximum speed in less than 10 tiles. Vacuum trains, on the other hand, can take tens and sometimes hundreds. This makes it incredibly hard to build traditional junctions, when a single slowdown can cause the entire network to fall into disarray. You may have noticed that this map vaguely looks like a ring. Well, it's about as close as I could get with the terrain generator. Anyways, I'm going to use this convenient landmass to build an equally ring-shaped network, with controlled access points, letting only full-speed trains enter and only when they won't disrupt traffic. I'm mulling over the details a bit, but I'll explain each component as it gets built. The ring is the most crucial piece in this whole operation, so I'll start here. Basically, it's just a big circle. The end. Well, actually, it's a big one-way circle. A standard two-way network would require junctions far too complex for these trains not to back themselves up. I'd also like for the ring to be at least close to a perfect circle, as long as the terrain allows for that to happen. A good-looking network boosts morale, and a high morale boosts the network in return. Well, it's a bit lopsided, but that's to be expected. The subnetwork is sprawled all over the place, and there's tons of inopportune cliffs. As I clear things out, I'll try and refine this ring to be more appealing to the eye. Rest in peace to the city that just so happened to be laying in the path of my destruction. Your sacrifice will not be in vain. And while I'm at it, I'll move the drop point for that original vacuum train to the opposite side of the map. Now I've got the pickup on one side of the ring, and the drop on the other side. While it's not a huge boost, this will increase profit and further enable my train madness. Let's observe as this train takes its first lap around the ring. Well, that doesn't look right. What happened to the speed? Well, in my efforts to make a perfect circle, I introduced too many turns too quickly for this train to handle. Almost every train boils down to one behavior when turning. If a rail has two opposing turns within the span of one train length, the train carries on without decelerating. If a rail has two like-directioned turns within the span of one train length, it has to slow down. Two like-directioned turns still count if there is an opposing direction between, and this is the issue I'm facing here. But what if I told you that this is by design? It's time to enact phase 2 of my master plan, the microtrain. During the copious testing I did for this run, I found that the optimal train length has 2 engines and 1 cargo wagon. It may not seem like it, but this is what peak performance looks like. Let's follow the new specimen as it takes its first lap around the ring. Well, this is pretty cool, and visually jarring to say the least. Actually, I'm getting a bit sick watching this. I'll try and keep these onboard shots to a minimum. But anyways, hooray! The concept is proven. It's time to add some more trains! But not too many. Actually, I can only add 4. The engines are the expensive part, and now there's 2 per train. I guess the subnetwork will be sticking around for a while longer. Speaking of this subnetwork, maybe I should continue to expand it. It is dawning on me just how expensive it'll be to make the vacuum network self-sufficient. I'd like to have somewhere in the ballpark of 1,000 trains by the time I'm finished, and if each train costs 10 million, I'll need $10 billion just for trains. I play a lot of games in the factory genre, and there's a common theme among them. Usually, you build a starter base that funds the mid-game base, which then funds the end-game base. Transport Tycoon does not follow this scheme, at least in the way that I play. Since my playstyle is built for modularity and easy upgrades, there's no need to start fresh in the middle of a playthrough. But this map is shaping up to be a very different experience. I hooked up some forests and a lumber mill, but the subnetwork is really struggling to keep up. Maybe it was my haphazard building, or maybe I'm just demanding too much from only one lane. In either case, it's generating even more money than before. Enjoy the spaghetti while you can, it won't be around much longer. Let's add some more trains! Those upgrades are paying off, now we can buy 7 trains. Since the initial coal mine is near capacity, I'll hook up another one nearby. I was a little worried these trains wouldn't be earning fast enough, but the exact opposite turned out to be true. With the exception of a few passenger trains, the vacuum trains are actually our highest earners. What's even crazier is that these trains are only earning 10,000 per trip. They run, on average, 50 laps within the span of 1 year. Absolutely wicked. Even so, I still find myself waiting many years between additions. And speaking of additions, I think it's time to diversify our cargo network. Farms produce livestock and grain, and provide a solid avenue for adding some more trains. Plus, delivering this cargo generates even more cargo in return. Double the trains! So far, my connections to the ring have been disorderly at best. These ad hoc junctions will catch up to me soon, but for the time being are good enough. There's 4 more trains for the train gods. I just hatched a devious scheme. This factory is being fed tons of steel from the subnetwork and producing tons of cargo in return. Currently, the subnetwork delivers this cargo across the map, very slowly. I'll refactor this route to use the vacuum ring instead. This should have a large impact on profit. Goods are a very high-paying cargo, but are also extremely time-sensitive. At the moment, the slow trains can manage around 3 of these trips per year, so there's a lot of time to be saved. I can only afford to stock 3 trains at the moment, so let's see how that fares. Well, I guess 3 wasn't enough. Goods are building up in the station. I'll just keep adding more until this number goes down. A new issue is beginning to rear its head in the vacuum network. Take note of the little red dots slowing down on the ring. When a train is running at max speed and catches up to a train that is still accelerating, it runs into the slower train's signal block and cannot enter. This causes the faster train to slow to a halt and will have to accelerate once again. As the network grows in activity, these slowdowns will become more impactful and can domino effect their way into a network permanently in disarray. For now, I'll ignore it, but in the future, I will have to fix this. Refitting the goods has worked out very well. I'll continue replacing our old, slow infrastructure with blazing fast, new infrastructure. Next up is the wood line, and just like before, I'll only be capturing the end product of this production chain. For now, the subnetwork will continue to deliver input cargo. Gradually transitioning to vacuum trains has the added benefit of relieving the subnetwork's traffic issues, which is great because I do not have any intention to upgrade this thing. While I've been building these vacuum rails, you may have noticed that I've been trying to dodge water at all costs. That's because the only way to cross water in vanilla OpenTTD is to use bridges, and unfortunately, none of the bridges I have accommodate anywhere near the speed required for these trains. No bridges? That's alright. What previous trains managed with steel and iron, I'll manage with rock and stone, aka a land bridge. And lucky for us, we can still use tunnels because they're exempt from any speed penalties. It's time to add some more trains! 4 more to be exact. Sorry to drip feed these, but they are still ludicrously expensive. If it's any solace, I have to sit here adding even more trains to make sure we aren't leaving any cargo in the station. The ring is getting very active, and this is only with 37 trains. It's crazy to think that they're all being utilized to this degree. I think it's time to dismantle the old passenger lines. I won't be replacing these with the vacuum network, but they really weren't earning that much when compared to the rest of this nonsense. Plus, they're getting in the way of this perfect circle. Though income has doubled since the expansion of the vacuum network, it's still not enough. 4 trains per year is far too slow for any meaningful progress. So now it's time to refit the remaining subnetwork. I'm starting to think that this challenge is going to take a lot longer than I expected, so I have to kick things into high gear. I'm skimming over quite a bit, so here's a quick summary of the conversion to vacuum tubes. First, I swap out the old iron trains. This requires a new station for each quarry, and one next to the steel mill. The steel mill is connected to a factory across the map that I reconfigured back when I made those farm stations. Second, I swap out the old forest trains. That's 3 more stations connected to a new station next to the sawmill. The sawmill is connected to a city across the map that I reconfigured about 1 minute ago. And in between all of that, I sat and waited for money to accumulate so that I could buy an adequate amount of trains for each station. And that's everything. There really wasn't that much to miss. It may have taken 40 years, but I've finally replaced all of the old rails. I've successfully bootstrapped the train particle accelerator. The only issue now is that it's near completely jammed. Remember what I said earlier about cascading slowdowns on the ring? Well, it seems the worst has happened, and now we're in a never-ending train meltdown. Well, I guess there's nothing I can do. Or is there? When merging traffic to a main line, I employ a bit of logic to make sure that the main line takes priority. This keeps the main line running smoothly and has a major effect on a network overall. But these only work under normal circumstances. Regular trains are slow and can accelerate to their maximum speed in a handful of tiles. Vacuum trains take a couple dozen tiles to accelerate, and even more when laden with cargo. It's against my well-being to go around making 100-tile-long priorities everywhere, so I need a more elegant solution. If acceleration is the problem, why not drop it altogether and only merge full-speed trains? Then the priority could be reduced back down to a handful of tiles. Introducing the cyclotron. When a train begins to merge, it gets trapped in this tiny circle until it's running at its maximum speed. Then, it moves to the second circle to be held at speed until there's space to join on the main line. The design is very small, but it comes with a trade-off. The cyclotron cannot judge a train's speed and has to be manually configured per train. There's a waypoint at either end of this circle. I have to order the train to run through each waypoint enough times for it to accelerate fully. Only after running those instructions can the train attempt to join the main line. The second loop buffers one full-speed train, but it's only precautionary and probably not load-bearing. It's a low-tech solution, but this is just about the best that I could hope for. I toyed with a few designs that use a ton of signal logic to determine a train's speed, but they ended up way too big. I'm anticipating having to build a lot of these things, and while there's ample space now, I have some big plans for the future of this network. Installing these things will require a large-scale reorganization of the vacuum network. So far, I have been connecting industries to the ring on a whim, only focusing on basic functionality, but going forward, infrastructure needs to be a lot more intentional. I'd like to have strong connection points scattered around the ring, employing the cyclotron for merging at each one. Since most of the primary industries are in the southwest, I'll build the first connection there. This will be the first implementation of the cyclotron, although just one won't be enough. It takes time for a train to accelerate, and in doing so, blocks that cyclotron from handling any other trains. I have no idea how many I'll need, but I'll start with 4. While I've done a lot of testing, I have yet to build this contraption in an actual network. Because of this, it's probably for the best that I play it safe. I'll space things out until I can better understand the limits of this system. Somehow, the hardest part of all of this was linking the industries together. They're all very isolated and in very inopportune spots, so I end up daisy-chaining them with some wicked spaghetti. Hopefully, as I add more connections to the ring, I can split this into several parts, because it is quite messy. That turned out pretty well. It's had a pretty big effect on traffic already, but to be fair, that might be due to how bad this area was before the rework. Maybe now you'll understand why I didn't want this to be a passenger network. There's still a ton of unoptimized connections that are having a negative effect on traffic, so I guess it's time to go and fix that. Next up are the secondary industries in the south. These are in a much better position to fix. The new issue is that the portion of track I'm making the connection to is all diagonal. Well, these tracks always find a way. That wasn't so bad. Setting up the orders are a little different for secondary industries though. Since they both receive and export cargo, some of these trains are entering the ring without carrying anything. These empty trains are lighter and can accelerate much faster. Therefore, they spend less time in the cyclotron. The last two connections are more of the same. I'm just waiting for money to accumulate and then spending it all. That's all industries properly connected. Let's see how it handles traffic though. It's still jammed. Fun. I guess I should have expected copious debugging with a network like this. There's a few suspects I'm thinking might be causing all of these issues, but first I'll need a way to clear all trains from the ring. I'm going to cordon off some land near the center of the ring and build a control board. Even if I solve the current jamming issues, I know for certain I'll run into even more down the road, so a centralized place to control the entire network is a necessity. The first component is a kill switch. If I send a red signal to a cyclotron, trains can't enter. I can repeat this for every cyclotron on the map, allowing me to block all access to the ring. I've got everything hooked up to this one switch. When I toggle it, watch as the ring empties out. Very cool. Before I go any further diagnosing, I think I'm going to bring back the old passenger networks, but this time with planes. These vacuum trains have insanely high operational costs. All of the trains will be sitting idle, so having a safety net for the budget is definitely necessary. Alright, back to the ring. First of all, I'd like to see what happens when I release trains back into an empty ring. I see. Slowdowns appear instantly. It seems to be starting at the connection points, so there's some kind of merging issue. There's one flaw with these full-speed priority merges that I've neglected up until now, and it's pretty hard to explain. I'll try, but this is some very archaic knowledge. Consider this scenario. A train is attempting to leave the cyclotron into an empty merge. The train thinks it's safe to enter, because the entry signal is relaying an empty priority. The issue is that the entry signal is not immediately on the circle, but instead one tile forward. If a train enters the priority during this one tile of track, the entry signal turns red, stopping the merging train. The train cannot reverse and sits there idle until the priority clears again. The train will then enter the main line from a standstill, causing a jam in the process. This can be resolved by adding track that connects the beginning of the merge to the end of the priority lane. I'm not sure how to explain why this works, but functionally, it adds a short zone where two trains can safely occupy the same priority. And this is exactly what we need. These are called fail-safe priority merges, and are the only reason that something like this can work. You likely will never need these in a regular network. A standard priority will work just fine. Putting these things into place is pretty annoying, but I eventually get all 20 of them built. And they break all the kill switch logic I just set up. Fun! Let's see if these changes have had any effect on traffic. And nope, it still jams. Well, let's run down the laundry list of possible fixes. Trains move a little slower on diagonals and actually grow lengthwise. At times, this can cause them to block signals that they otherwise wouldn't. There's no elegant solution for this, so I'll just spam signals everywhere. Alright, let's see if that worked. It runs for a bit longer before slowing down, but it still slows down. I know I said laundry list, but that was the only idea I had, besides a complete rebuild of each connection. If the trains weren't so close together to begin with, this would not be happening, and the only thing controlling distance between trains are the priority lanes at each connection. At the moment, I've built them out as long as I can, but I'm limited by the amount of space between each cyclotron, which is pretty slim. I'm yearning for a slower train right about now. All I wanted was a cool looking network, and instead I got hours upon hours of rebuilds and bug fixing. But I know what'll cheer me up. Greg Tech update. During my many bouts of train madness, I take solace that I can return to my humble base at any time and slowly chip away at the plotline. There's no way I could write a worthy summary, but if you're into the factory genre, I really recommend checking this out. Just a warning though, it's not for the faint of heart. It's extremely hands-on for a long time. Let's check back in and see how the rebuild is going. Utter pandemonium. The failsafes work just fine, but now an even more sinister issue has cropped up. While priorities are good for keeping space behind a merging train, there's not much I can do to assure that there is space in front of a train. Sometimes, a train will find itself merging right behind another, leading to jams elsewhere in the circle where diagonal rails begin to fuzz things. The only way to fix this is to add even more space between cyclotrons, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm just going to make a second lane. If I move every other cyclotron to a second lane, that will free up the space for the extra merging logic. Yeah, more construction! I've been bug fixing so long I forgot what I was even doing. I just hope that this works, because I'm all out of ideas. It looks like the rebuild went smoothly, and I rewired the kill switch so that we can use it once again. Alright, moment of truth. Time to flip the switch and see how it runs. It actually works, and without any slowdowns to be seen. That only took a week to figure out. Maybe these trains can hypnotize me into believing that time was spent productively. Now I can finally play the game. Right, where was I? Oh yeah, adding some more trains! To soothe my soul, I'll add a whole dozen this time. At one point, I thought that I could fit 1,000 trains on this map, but now that I've looked train hell straight in the face, I don't think we'll get anywhere near that. The connection in the south isn't handling trains nearly fast enough. I'm only now noticing that almost every train in the network passes through here, so it might be worth splitting some of this traffic into a separate line. A cool feature of this network is that the ring will always be moving. If there's no space to join, the train will just wait in the cyclotron, so if any backups occur, they'll be happening there. Another cool feature is the traffic density within the ring. Every train takes exactly 1 lap around the ring, so the traffic density is the same everywhere. This is usually true for one-way networks and makes them incredibly easy to scale, unless your network looks like this, in which case, good luck. There we go, another build finished. The south connection used to house both steel and wood production, but now I've split wood into its own separate connection. This whole area turned out pretty nice. Though hills can be annoying to work around, they're also a great backdrop for a mechanism like this. The drop point for the wood chain is also in a pretty weird spot. I'll move this to its own connection as well. The cyclotrons take up a lot of space, so it's for the best that I keep their traffic loads on the low side. As fun as it would be to build a giga junction with 100 of these things, it's just not practical. Although I guess I'm not known for my practicality. This whole time, I've been doing a lot of construction and very little train adding. The annoying part about this network is that even the most simple line requires a dozen acres of boilerplate. And that's fun for me because that's the kind of stuff that I enjoy doing. Whether or not that's fun to watch is up to your discretion. This should, hopefully, be the last major rework I'll have to do. After this, it's just adding more trains, connecting industries, and upgrading where necessary. The size of this ring is finite, so there's only so much space I can attach cyclotrons to. I'm guessing that, so far, I've used around half of that space. I'm not sure if the network could handle the level of traffic that would come with that many cyclotrons though. But I guess I'm not against adding a third lane. I'd like to add some kind of visual feedback for the connections. The cyclotrons kind of do this already, but it's only visible up close. It'd be nice to see their usage from a distance, so I know exactly where to add more lanes. This one is actually quite simple. I made my own signal graphic mod that swaps the analog signal graphics with large pixels that are easily viewable from a distance. I'll relay the state of the signal blocks within each cyclotron to a display, and the display will be within each cyclotron. Not to toot my own horn, but this was a great idea. At this rate, I'll have a Stargate in Transport Tycoon long before I ever get one in GregTech. But wait a minute, that was just more boilerplate. Whenever are we going to add some more trains? How about right now? The displays make it incredibly easy to figure out which lines need more trains, and right now, both east and west seem a little underloaded. That means the sawmill needs a lot more trains. But before any of that, the sawmill needs more wood, and all of the wood is coming from this connection that is completely backed up. Yeah, more boilerplate. All the building is getting a little annoying, but these trains are just very efficient. There's only 100 trains in the network, and it manages to look this active because every train is always moving. Each of them take, on average, 30 trips per year. That's at least one order of magnitude above a regular network, so adding one vacuum train is equal to adding a dozen standard low-speed trains. With that sorted, it's time to add some more trains. I'll add a handful that carry wood and a few more for the sawmill. While adding these trains, a new issue has cropped up. These tiny stations are becoming a bottleneck, but I guess that's obvious considering their size. I won't go too crazy with the upgrade as they're already pretty powerful. For most of these, 1 or 2 new platforms will be enough. With far fewer trains cooped up in stations, the ring becomes a lot more active, and with increased activity comes more jams. Even after endless hours of bug fixing, slowdowns still occur. Well, I guess it's time for even more endless hours of bug fixing. It seems those fixes have done the trick. Surely this good traffic will last. It's time for some more cyclotrons. The very first connection we made is now the most backed up. The majority of our resources come from this connection, so getting things moving again should greatly boost the rest of our industries. This is shaping up to be the most insane network I've ever seen. These trains demand nothing but the most complicated infrastructure possible. Let's add some more trains. There's more iron, which means more steel, which means more goods, and that's a lot of new trains to add. I proposed making a third lane earlier, but I'm not sure if I've still got it in me. Making yet another circle, the miles of priority lanes, and weaving all the connections just seems like too much of a headache. And the third lane is right behind me, isn't it? And since I skipped over all of that, here's a few design highlights. The original connection in the southwest is looking absolutely bonkers. This is what I live for. These tracks ended up having a sci-fi vibe to them, with little bits and bobs that may look pointless at a glance, but actually do have purpose. It was at this point that I realized I should have recorded this playthrough at 60 FPS, because these trains are just too fast, and I apologize for that. Unfortunately, my commitment to cinema is just too strong, so the best I can give you is 24. The control board has sat neglected for many years, and I'm not too sure what I should do with this thing. Throughout the playthrough, I've tried brainstorming little gadgets, but none of them seemed very useful, and certainly were not big enough to make a dent in the claimed area. I dreamed of a map where everything could be managed with an array of controls, but sadly it just wouldn't have added much. I shrunk the control down to be a bit more appropriately sized, and I gotta say, it looks a lot better. Well, back to building. Most of the usable space on the ring has been claimed at this point, but there is one spot I've been putting off. This mountain has been hard to design around, and sadly, it's the only place left for expansion. Luckily, this connection is backed up, so this addition isn't entirely pointless. This is more of the same, although in this case, there's a mountain in the way. I'd like to think I'm experienced enough with the game to brute force my way through any problem, but terrain like this really forces me to think outside the box. And there it is, the last cyclotron that I can stand to build. For the final time, let's add some more trains! The entire network is pretty hammered now, but even still, I'll add as many trains as I can. This last push brings us up to 175. It's not a ton of trains, but it's a decent amount. Honestly, I've never seen a network with so few trains look this alive. There is never a dull moment for any of them. While the megastructure is not without flaw, every now and then it produces perfect flowing traffic for a few minutes with no interruptions, and those few precious minutes almost make the suffering worthwhile. Anyways, this is what it takes to conquer the fastest train in OpenTTD. That's all from me. I've ruined yet another precious ecosystem. I'll see you all next time with more trains!